I'll never forget the first time I laid eyes on a silver arowana. It was at a small mom and pop fish store called Creatures and Critters in Woodbridge, Virginia, and this would have been like 1992. From the moment I saw that fish, I was obsessed, and here we are 28 years later, and they're still my absolute favorite fish. Lisa and I met in 2008, and she very quickly became in love with this hobby too, and guess what her first fish was? Yep, a silver arowana. She named her Pip. We've done several videos about arowanas, but we've never spent much time on what can go with these gorgeous titans. So here is our list of the top 10 tank mates for silver arowanas. If you like this kind of content, you should definitely subscribe to the channel, and if you know a fish that goes great with silver arowanas, put it down in the comment section below. The first arowana I bought was not bought alone. No, I brought that fish home with an amazing tiger Oscar. Oscars are one of the best tank mates for arowanas because they get big enough so there's no threat of them getting eaten, plus they won't really pose a threat to the arowanas. The only possible threat they pose is the fact that Oscars are absolute gluttons and will hog all the food. Arowanas are usually slower eaters. They like to stalk their food and take their time, but when Oscars are in the tank, that changes real quick. In our 360 gallon that has 2 arowanas and 2 Oscars, it's funny because they'll see us walk up to the tank, and as soon as the food hits the water, the arowanas jump at it to make sure the Oscars don't hog it all. It's pretty entertaining to watch. The bottom line is this: if you don't like Oscars, you can go fuck.
Sevrums are without a doubt the classiest fish on this list. They don't have some kind of weird shape, and they're not going to eat everything in sight. They're actually a very peaceful cichlid that we've never had an aggression problem with, and they're absolutely gorgeous. This is the closest thing to discus you're going to find, and I love me some discus. The only issue that Sevrums will ever have if they're mixed with other fish on this list is their mouths are so tiny they can't gulp down big pieces of shrimp or monster pellets. John ran into this problem with his Sevrums that he has with 2 Oscars and 2 arowanas. It was a pretty easy problem to fix though. He didn't have to do anything. Arowanas and Oscars are such sloppy eaters that the Sevrums would just follow them around at feeding time and eat the small pieces that they left behind or came out of their gills. Sevrums aren't the fastest growers on this list, so make sure that when you go to pick some up that they have some size to them before you put them in with your arowanas. John bought all of these fish at the same time, which was actually on my birthday last year in August. Yeah, he bought fish for himself on my birthday, but he bought me 10 discus, so it's okay. Look at how much bigger all of the fish are now. The arowanas have gotten much bigger, the Oscars have tripled in size, and the Sevrums, well, they're much bigger, but you can see the difference isn't as dramatic as the others.
Stingrays are without question one of the most fascinating fish kept in aquariums. Period. This is definitely not a fish for beginner fish keepers, but let's be real. If you've got an arowana, you're probably farther along in your fish keeping journey, and you're capable of housing one of these amazing creatures. Now, it has to be said that stingrays need a little different type of aquarium than most fish do. The footprint of an aquarium doesn't usually matter for most fish because they're kind of all over the place. But with stingrays always being on the bottom and growing out rather than up, the most important dimension in their tank is going to be the front to back measurement. So if it's your plan to keep arowanas and stingrays together, you're going to want a tank that's not only long, but also deep. When we say deep in an aquarium, we mean the measurement from front to back. The measurement from bottom to top is the height. On the topic of height, that's the great thing about keeping arowanas with stingrays. As long as your tank is long and deep, you're good. It doesn't have to be real tall. The arowanas will stay up at the top patrolling the surface, and the stingrays are always going to stay down at the bottom. So it's a beautiful thing to see, and let me tell you something, there is no better conversation starter. First of all, many people don't even realize there's such thing as a stingray that can be kept in an aquarium. You add to that a long silver dinosaur-looking fish up at the surface, people's jaws will drop the second they see it. There might be people that disagree with me on this, but in my opinion, there is no better combination of fish in the freshwater fish keeping hobby than arowanas and stingrays. They're just amazing.
Why am I the one that always gets the controversial fish?
Because I want everyone to think I'm nice.
Whatever. If you ask me, blood parrot shouldn't even be controversial. They're a really weird orange fish that their mouth looks like it barely opens, but what's the big deal?
They're hybrids.
So?
Don't get mad at me, you're the one asking why they're controversial.
Anyway, yes, blood parrots are a hybrid fish, which means two different fish combined to make them. Kind of like a labradoodle. For some reason, some people have a problem with that. The two fish mix together to create a very interesting looking weird fish that I have no idea why they named it blood parrot. The really good thing though is they're a super peaceful fish that isn't really even capable of being aggressive with that weird mouth of theirs. I personally love the blood parrot. I'm one of those people that like to root for the underdog. And for some reason, I think that if they were a kid and they were on the playground, they'd probably get picked on for being that ugly kid. And that really bothers me. And all the more reason to love them.
Everyone's looking for a cleaner fish that's going to patrol the substrate and help keep things tidy in the aquarium. But the problem is, most cleaner fish are way too small to be in an aquarium with arowanas, because they'll just get eaten. Well, enter the common Plecostomus. The common pleco is a staple in the fish keeping hobby, but there's something about this fish you may not know. Common plecos are carnivores. Yeah, you heard me right. They're carnivores, which means they want to eat meat. And that may come as a surprise to new fish keepers that have always called these fish algae eaters. When I first started keeping fish, I didn't even know the name of this fish until I'd been keeping fish for like 5 years. To me, they were always either algae eaters or sucker fish. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about how awesome these fish are. They're awesome because they really won't bother any other fish. They look like little dinosaurs, and yes, they will help keep things tidy in your aquarium. But most importantly, they have no problem getting along with arowanas. Just don't go into owning a pleco thinking they're going to do all the work for you and keeping your tank clean. In all honesty, I find them to be not very good algae eaters unless it's diatom algae, which is that annoying dark brown algae. But I've never known them to be very good at eating green algae. This is a really cool catfish that'll complement any arowana aquarium. They might be a little boring, but they look so cool it doesn't even really matter. Let me take a minute to tell you about this week's video sponsor, Skillshare. As a YouTuber, I've become obsessed with always trying to get better and take my channel to the next level. One of the ways I've been working on that is through online classes on Skillshare. This is a service I signed up for a while ago, and I've really been enjoying taking all kinds of different classes, including a Final Cut Pro class, because there's always something to learn, and a really fun one I'm taking now on storytelling from Dan Mace. You may know him if you're a fan of Casey Neistat. So when Skillshare reached out and wanted to sponsor a video, it was an absolute no-brainer. It's super easy to promote a product that you're already using and familiar with. One of the great things about Skillshare is you can take these classes anywhere you want, whether it's on your lunch break, while you're commuting, or you can even download the classes and watch them when you don't have access to Wi-Fi, like if you're one of those people that travels on a plane. But the best thing about this platform is it's super cheap. You can get access to all the classes they offer for less than $10 a month. And the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description are going to get 2 months for free. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and if you're looking to ramp up your skills on whatever creative project you're working on, check them out because you can always learn something.
A lot of times you'll see arowanas in a tank with some really big fish. But if you want to do something cool and mix things up, get some silver dollars. They'll school together and they'll look awesome. Silver dollars are a really exciting schooling fish that get pretty big, but they're by no means monster fish. They're not known to be overly aggressive, but you do have to be careful. Any kind of schooling fish could turn on you at any second. I guess it's a mob mentality or something. What I mean is a fish that's generally peaceful might become aggressive if they have a bunch of their friends with them. We all had that friend growing up that was a huge wimp and scared of everything until you got him around a bunch of his friends and then he got all cocky and stuff. I really can't stand those people. Well, I've heard stories like that about silver dollars. In big numbers, they can gang up on other fish, but if you only have a few, they'll be fine. Don't let that scare you though. This is a big, bold, bright silver fish that will go great with arowanas, and if you get a group of them, they'll add a ton of action and excitement into your tank.
Okay, let's first address the elephant in the room. Bishar, Bikar, Bishar, Biker, these are all the different ways I've heard the name of this fish pronounced. Which one is the right one? I don't know. But I call them bikers, because I like motorcycles. Anyway, bikers are a super cool fish that looks like a cross between a lizard and a snake. They get a good size, usually around a foot, and they have pretty much the same appetite as arowanas. Which basically means if it can fit in their mouth, they're gonna eat it. And if it's moving, that's even better. Bikers are the opposite of arowanas as far as where they like to stay in the tank. Arowanas will always be at the top, and bikers will always be at the bottom or hiding in a cave. They're just not going to be going back and forth all day long like arowanas do. This is another conversation starter of a fish. When your friends come over and see it, they'll be like, "Oh my God, what's that crocodile, lizard, snake looking thing?" I actually had a friend say those exact words to me when I had one like 20 years ago. He was my special friend. Another great thing about this fish is they'll have the exact same rules as arowanas. Don't put anything small enough for them to eat it in the tank, because they will, and give them plenty of room and don't allow even the slightest opening on the top of the tank, because they'll go right out. The reason why I say it's a good thing that their rules are the same for both of these fish is that you're not going to have to do anything special to accommodate the bikers that you're not already doing for your arowanas. So it's just super easy.
The Jaguar cichlid is a fish that I have always loved. I really wanted John to get one for the 360, but he got the Severums instead, and that's okay because I really like those too. Jaguars are a monster cichlid that can get to about 1.5 feet in size, so just like everything else on this list, make sure whatever you put with them isn't going to be small enough to fit in their mouth. I don't know this is fact, but I think it's safe to say that they got their name from the pattern on their body looking so much like the cats. And I love cats. A lot. Just like with any big cichlid, you've definitely got to be careful because they have the potential to be mean. But we've never had any get too mean. We had one in our arowana tank with an Oscar and a Jack Dempsey and never had any problems with it at all. I've found them to be easygoing with other fish, as long as they're the same size or larger. No matter what, this is a striking fish that will go along perfectly well with an arowana. So for this video, that's all that matters.
Ah, the clown knife. Quite possibly one of the most unique fish in the entire fish keeping hobby. If you haven't seen one, you're in for a treat. The clown knife is another great fish to keep with arowanas because they share all the same rules. Big tank, clean water, and plenty of meaty foods. To put these with your arowanas, you don't have to make any accommodations for them. Everything you're already doing for your arrows will be perfect. I don't even know how to describe this fish. Their shape isn't like anything else I've ever seen. This fish is very different than most of the fish on this list because almost all of them are super active. The clown knife is super lazy. I mean, really lazy. Like, they hardly move at all. But that's not a terrible thing though, because they're so cool looking and they just sit there and let you stare at them. There is one thing I'd caution you on though about these clown knives is that you definitely need to keep your lid on tight, but also, if at all possible, have some space between your water line and your lid. And I'm going to tell you why. I know it's not easy unless you have a massive tank, but there's a very specific reason for this. Clown knives aren't going to try to jump out of the water to catch food like Arowanas and bikers do, but if they get spooked, they'll move faster than you've ever seen them move straight up. If your lid is just above the waterline, they'll ram right into it and either kill themselves or even worse, break their back. Believe me, I know this from experience. It's terrible.
Why? Just why?
Because peacock bass are awesome.
But you know I think they're ugly.
I'm sorry.
Well, they might be ugly, but it doesn't change the fact that they're great tank mates for Arowanas. So let's just move on. The peacock bass is another absolutely striking fish. They might not be my personal favorite, but you can't deny that long shape and bright yellow color. This is a fish that gets really big, really fast, so don't plan on having them in anything shy of 8 feet in length. They can get over 3 feet long in the wild. They may not get that big in an aquarium, but that's a monster. Just as pretty much all of the fish on this list, the peacock bass doesn't really require anything different than Arowanas. Give them plenty of open swimming space, some good meaty food, and keep their water clean and watch them explode. Whether I like them or not, you gotta admit, having a bright yellow fish in your tank is pretty cool. I don't know, maybe they're growing on me? Nah.